I have to cut back this month too. Every time I look at my account, I feel depressed. After my father-in-law's death, I sent $3,000 a month to my mother-in-law. As a result, I can't save any money and barely make ends meet every month. One day, when I went to my mother-in-law's house to visit her, she was packing clothes in a carry-on bag. "What are you doing, mother-in-law?" "Oh. I'm going to Guam with my daughter next time." "What? Guam?" I couldn't believe what my mother-in-law was saying. "I'm cutting back on my expenses as much as possible to help my mother-in-law, who is in debt." I was angry. "Guam? Isn't it not the time to go there? Shouldn't you pay off your debt first?" "Wait a minute. Debt? What are you talking about?" "Huh?" It seems that my mother-in-law didn't pretend not to know and really didn't know about the debt. When I asked my husband, who came with me to his parents' house. Actually, he slowly began to tell the truth. 3 years ago, my father-in-law died of terminal colon cancer. My husband James and I live in an apartment about a 15-minute walk from his parents' house. My mother-in-law often comes to visit us and shares food with us. I think it's thanks to my father-in-law that we have a good relationship with my mother-in-law. The funeral of my father-in-law went well, and we were having dinner at home when my husband talked to me with a serious face. "Helen, I'm sorry at this time." "Huh? What's wrong?" "My father had a lot of debt. My mother inherited it." When I asked my husband about the remaining amount of the debt, he said it was roughly $300,000. I never thought that my father had so much debt. "What did your father borrow such a large sum of money for?" "I don't know either." "Hey. Helen, can you send money to Mom every month?" "Huh?" I was surprised by what my husband said. Certainly, I understand that it is difficult after the death of my father-in-law. I want to help her because she always takes care of us, but... Hey, please. In that case, why don't you ask Jennifer, who lives with your mother? She's a nurse. She earns more than we do, doesn't she? I thought about that too, but it seems that only I knew about my father's debt. He probably didn't want Jennifer to know. That may be true, but we don't earn that much either. I thought about refusing the request for financial support from my husband but thought of my mother-in-law. My mother-in-law has helped me several times. When I couldn't find a job and was looking for one every day, she came over to clean and prepare dinner for me instead. She is someone who bows deeply every time she brings something over. Okay. Let's send her money. In return, we can only live on less than before. Is that okay? Really? Thank you. Can we send $3,000 a month so that we can repay the debt as soon as possible? Of course, I don't need any pocket money. I was surprised by the amount but felt the same way about wanting them to repay the debt as soon as possible. Thus, we decided to send money every month to our mother-in-law. Since deciding to send money to our mother-in-law, I have made every effort to reduce expenses. To reduce living expenses even a little, I walked to the next town and bought discounted food, and even bought cheap daily necessities regardless of their quality. After half a year of living like this. One day while having dinner with my husband. Hey. Has Helen lost weight recently? Really? Now that you mention it, my pants feel loose lately. I wasn't aware of it until he mentioned it. After taking a bath after dinner and looking at myself in the mirror, I noticed that my ribs were sticking out and that I had become thin. Do I have to send money to my mother-in-law so desperately? I felt pathetic looking at myself in the mirror. So I headed for the bedroom and consulted with my husband about reducing the amount of money sent. Hey. I looked at myself in the mirror earlier and saw how thin I've become. You lost weight? That's good. That's not what I meant. It's not at that level. It's different. I feel like I'm malnourished or something. I've probably been eating pretty frugally lately. Can't we reduce the amount of money we send to your mother to around $1,500? When I said that, my husband suddenly got angry. What are you talking about? If we do that, your mother's debt will never decrease. Just bear with it a little. After saying that, my husband turned his back to me and went to sleep. I know that the debt won't decrease, but if things continue like this, my body will break down. I tried talking to my husband a few more times after that, but he either pretended to be asleep or didn't listen. From the next day on, my relationship with my husband gradually deteriorated. We usually had fun conversations during dinner about what happened that day, but it became minimal. Even when I talked to him, he responded with just one word or a vague answer. Is it my fault? If I had just put up with it, would this have happened? I was mentally reaching my limit. A week later, due to stress or something else, I fell ill and had a high fever. I think it's just a cold, but I wanted to go see a doctor and get checked out. So I told my husband that I was going to the hospital. Huh? You don't need to go to the hospital. It's just a cold. You'll get better if you sleep at home. But there's a virus going around now. I want to see a doctor. Doctors are expensive. We have to save money. In the end, my husband stopped me from going to the hospital and I couldn't go. From this point on, I began to distrust my husband. Come to think of it, why isn't my husband losing weight? We eat together, don't we? As I lay down, I wondered why my husband's physique hadn't changed at all. He's always been thin, but it wouldn't be strange if he got even thinner. Oh well. Let's go to bed now. The next day, thanks to getting enough sleep, I felt much better. Good morning. Hey. Are you feeling better now? I slept well and feel completely better now. It seems like it was just a cold like you said. That's what I told you. Anyway. My mom invited us over for dinner. It's been a while since she invited us over. My husband and I walked over to his parents' house. Mom. We're here. When my husband rang the doorbell at his parents' house, his mother greeted us. Thank you for coming. Come in. As we were led into the living room, we noticed that there were steaks lined up on the table. Steak. It's been so long since we've seen it. I was so excited that I almost shouted out loud. Don't hold back and eat as much as you want. The taste of steak that I ate for the first time in a long time was exceptional. It was so delicious that I couldn't stop eating. Hey, Helen, you're eating too much. Oh, sorry. I was taken aback by what my husband said. It had been so long since I had eaten until full that I had eaten too much without realizing it. It's okay. There's no point in leaving any leftovers. Eat everything, I'm going up to my room for a bit. Saying that, she left the living room. After continuing to eat for a while and becoming full, I decided to clean up and thank my mother-in-law by going up to her room on the second floor. Wait. Hold on a second. My mother-in-law shouldn't have any money. So why is she serving such an expensive steak? As I climbed the stairs leading up to the second floor, I thought about such things. There are doubts, but let's say thank you first. When I opened my mother-in-law's room door, I saw her packing clothes into her suitcase. Mother-in-law, the steak was delicious. Thank you very much. What are you doing? Oh. Are you full? This? I'm going to Guam with Jennifer next time. Will Helen go with us? Guam. What? I couldn't understand what my mother-in-law was saying at all. Guam? Yes. Jennifer and I were talking and decided to go abroad for the first time in a while. Jennifer is at work today, so she's not at home, but if Helen goes too, she'll be happy. Ridiculous. I'm barely surviving every month. You're planning a trip overseas so carelessly. I was furious with my mother-in-law's statement. Don't be ridiculous. Huh? What's wrong? Don't you like traveling? That's not it. You have debt, don't you? Shouldn't you pay that off first? Debt? Calm down a bit. What do you mean by debt? I don't have any debt. Even if she tries to play dumb, it won't work. I'm sending her $3,000 every month. I'm cutting back every month and sending $3,000 to my mother-in-law. I thought it would help pay off the $300,000 debt my father-in-law left behind. My husband's $300,000 debt? Helen, I'm sorry. I really don't understand what you've been saying since earlier. And I haven't received $3,000 either. This feeling. It seems like my mother-in-law really doesn't know about the debt. So? At this point, I realized that it was my husband's conspiracy. It also makes sense he is healthy and never loses weight. I see. That's what it was. Huh? What do you mean? I decided to get back at my husband right here and now. Hey. You're making too much noise. What's going on? Just as I was about to call my husband, he came into my mother-in-law's room. This guy has been deceiving me all along. It's perfect timing. I was thinking of calling you. Huh? Me? Yes. You've been sending money to your mother properly all along, right? When I asked him that question, my husband's expression clouded over. Of course he can't say he's been sending money. I've been quiet about it all this time. How about it? I've been sending money. I didn't miss what my husband said. Then let me ask my mother-in-law too. Mother-in-law, James says he's been sending money properly. Is that true? I haven't received any money. See? My mother-in-law is saying this. What does that mean? That can't be true. I've been sending it properly. Even though he can no longer deny it, he still resists. Then should I ask my mother-in-law for help too? I trust my mother-in-law more than James. Excuse me, but could you show me your bank transaction history? When I asked her, she showed me her transaction history kindly. When I looked inside, there was no trace of $3,000 being transferred from my husband even once. Can you say that you've been sending money even after seeing this? It hasn't been transferred even once. He must have felt that he couldn't deny it anymore. My husband suddenly grabbed my arm and tried to take me out of my parents' house. That's enough. Let's go home. Don't be ridiculous. You're running away just because things got inconvenient. Let go of hand. I shook off my husband's hand with all my might. Because of you, I wasn't even allowed to go to the hospital when I had a high fever. I couldn't eat properly for about half a year. I was shocked to see my body getting thinner every day, but you probably didn't know that, did you? We eat together, but you don't lose weight at all. I was wondering why you were getting fatter, but now I understand. You're lying when you say your mother-in-law has debt. Are you using it yourself? I blurted out everything I had been thinking about my husband. I had never shouted so much in the past, and both my husband and mother-in-law looked surprised. My husband was just surprised and didn't say anything back. His attitude made me angry again. Why are you silent? Say something. I grabbed my husband's collar and approached him. If it were allowed, I would have pushed him off the second floor right now. Wait. Calm down. How can I calm down like this? Helen. No. You'll become a criminal if you keep going like this. Finally, I came to my senses after being told that by my mother-in-law. Out of anger, it seemed that I had strangled my husband's neck while grabbing his collar. My husband spoke slowly while coughing. Actually, I failed in stocks. Stocks? My work colleague told me about a good stock. He said it would definitely go up, so he told me to buy it for $300,000. What? What are you doing? You were able to borrow $300,000. Wait, could it be? Yes, actually it was from a loan shark. After hearing my husband's words, my mother-in-law broke down crying on the spot. My head also turned white, but I felt frustrated and pathetic when I thought about living with such a person. So you repaid $3,000 to the loan shark by setting up an arrangement to send money to your mother? Yes. The stocks were doing well at first, but they started falling soon after. When I thought it was too much, the value had dropped to about $200,000. And did you use all of that $200,000 for repayment? Of course. But the interest is so high that there's still about $100,000 left in principal. What are you doing? What was all my hard work for? My mother-in-law suddenly stood up and hit my husband hard. What are you doing? You're even lying. Do you know how much Helen has been struggling? Why didn't you tell me such an important thing? I might have been able to do something before it got this bad. My father-in-law rose to become a department manager at a major electronics manufacturer. He must have received a considerable amount of retirement money as well. As my mother-in-law said, if he was short of money and said so, he could probably do anything. It was right after my father died. I couldn't tell my mother at such a time. So he completely underestimated me. That's enough. I don't care what happens to this guy anymore. I interrupted my husband and mother-in-law's conversation and started talking. I understand everything about you from our conversation just now. In the end, you underestimated me. Fortunately, we don't have any children. Let's get divorced. I don't think I can live well with someone like you in the future. Wait. I don't underestimate you. He panicked when he heard the word divorce and clung to me desperately. You're underestimating me. What do you think I've been living through? I've been cutting back desperately for your mother's sake. In the end, I was being tossed around by your selfish actions. When you said seriously that you wanted to send money, I thought you were a good person who cared for your parents. I shouted again. But that was my true feelings. My husband probably couldn't argue anymore either. He looked down and froze. Mother-in-law, is that okay with you? It's not your fault, but I can't live with James anymore. When asked by me, she nodded quietly. Well then, that's what it is. I'll leave that apartment today. I'll send the divorce papers to this house by mail. Please submit them to the city office after writing them. I said that and tried to leave my parents' house. When I tried to leave through the door, my mother-in-law called out to me. It's really because of our stupid son. Sorry. I won't ask for forgiveness. I'm really sorry for hurting Helen's family register. My husband didn't come to see me off, but my mother-in-law bowed deeply to me while crying. That's right. This is what kind of person she was. She was polite and honest. If I had been sending her money, she would have come to thank me every month. I regret not realizing it a little earlier. It's okay, mother-in-law. Please lift your head. I'm really disappointed in James, but I'm grateful to you. I was really happy that you treated me like a real family member. If there's another opportunity, I'd like to meet with you again. Well then, excuse me. After leaving my parents' house, I signed the divorce papers and sent them to my parents' house by mail. After explaining the situation to my parents and packing my things, they said I could live with them for a while, so I headed to my parents' house, which was about an hour away by train. A week later, my mother-in-law contacted me to say that she had submitted the divorce papers to the city office. Hello. It's about the divorce papers. I submitted them safely. Thank you very much. By the way, I wanted to talk to Helen once. Can we talk at a cafe or somewhere? Well. Sure. I headed to a cafe about 30 minutes away from my parents' house as specified by my mother-in-law. When I entered the cafe, my sister-in-law and mother-in-law were already sitting at the table. Long time no see. When I greeted them, they bowed down and apologized to me even though we were inside a cafe. I'm really sorry. My stupid brother caused trouble for Helen. It's a little embarrassing, so please stop. I returned the two of them to their seats and asked them what they wanted to talk about today. Then my mother-in-law took an envelope out of her bag. Can you take this? What? When I looked inside the envelope, there was $50,000 in it. What is this? I can't accept this much money. It's okay. It's the money that Helen has been saving desperately and giving to her brother every month, and it's also compensation from us. Please take it without saying anything. Even if I refuse, they probably won't leave until I accept it. Thinking that way, I gratefully accepted $50,000. By the way, what happened to James? I used my father's inheritance to pay off everything. But since he probably won't reflect on it, he won't be allowed into the house until he returns that money. My ex-husband is working hard by working overtime to repay his mother. If he had worked hard like that when we were married, the result might have been different. My brother sometimes says he wants to reconcile with Helen. Every time he does that, I slap him. You're not in a position to say that. It helps me out. As for me, I don't think I'll ever reconcile with such a guy. If he says he wants to reconcile from now on, please slap him for me. After that, we had a pleasant conversation with my mother-in-law and sister-in-law and parted ways. During our conversation, we talked about going to Guam with just the three of us without James. Although I divorced James, I don't hate his mother and sister-in-law. I'll try to live happily alone while maintaining a good relationship with them.